Here is the most common thing I hear from manual QA engineers who want to move into automation. I do not know how to code. I do not have a computer science background. I do not know where to start. And here is what I want to tell every single one of them. You do not need a CS degree. You do not need to learn 5 languages. You do not even need to be a strong programmer. You need to learn just enough to write readable, maintainable test code, and that is a much lower bar than most people think. The jump from manual QA to automation engineer is not a leap. It is a sequence of small skills, learned in the right order, applied to real projects. I have seen people make this transition in 8 months while working a full-time manual QA job. Not by grinding 12 hours a day, by learning one focused thing at a time and immediately applying it. In this video, I am going to give you the exact sequence. Month by month. Skill by skill. What to build, what to skip, and what actually gets you hired. Before we get into the timeline, let's talk about why this transition is worth making. The average salary for a manual QA engineer in the United States is around $55,000. The average for an automation engineer in QA is around $90,000. That is a $35,000 gap for skills you can learn without going back to school. But beyond salary, there is something else. Automation skills compound. Every skill you add makes the previous ones more powerful. When you learn programming, your API testing gets deeper. When you learn CI/CD, your automation suite becomes something you can demo. When you build a public GitHub portfolio, every project you have ever built becomes visible to every recruiter searching for your skills. Manual testing is valuable, we have talked about that throughout this series. But the ceiling is different. And the skills you need to break through that ceiling are learnable, specific, and sequenced in a way that most people do not know about. That sequence is what this video is about. Months 1 through 3, build the foundation. There are 3 things you need in this phase and only 3. Do not add more. First, pick one programming language and go deep enough to be useful. I recommend JavaScript. Here is why. Playwright, the automation framework we covered in episode 4, is JavaScript native. The job market for JavaScript QA automation is larger than Python. And JavaScript is everywhere, so resources are abundant. You do not need to become a JavaScript developer. You need to be able to write functions, use variables, write loops and conditionals, and understand async and await. That is it. Spend 4 to 6 weeks here. Second, learn Git basics. Initialize a repository. Commit changes. Push to GitHub. Create a branch. That is the whole list for now. You are not doing pull requests or rebusing, just the 4 commands you need to save and share your work. Spend 1 week on this. Third, write your first Playwright test on a real app. Not a tutorial app, a real website you actually use. Go to a login page, a search feature, a checkout flow. Write 3 tests. Run them. Watch them pass. Commit them to GitHub. That is your month 3 deliverable. A real repository with real tests running against a real application. That single thing puts you ahead of most people applying for automation roles. Months 4 through 6, build depth. In this phase you are not learning new tools, you are making your existing skills production grade. First, learn the testing pyramid. Unit tests at the base, integration tests in the middle, end-to-end UI tests at the top. Understand why most of your tests should be at the bottom of the pyramid. They run faster, fail more precisely, and cost less to maintain. You do not need to write unit tests yet. You need to understand the concept well enough to discuss it in an interview. Second, learn to read a CI/CD pipeline. Go to any open source project on GitHub and look at their GitHub Actions workflow file. Read it. Understand what triggers a run, what steps execute, and what a failing check looks like. This takes a weekend. Third, add API testing to your suite. Use Playwright's built-in Request API or use Postman. Add 5 to 10 API tests alongside your UI tests. Now your suite has 2 layers. Fourth, and this is the most important thing in this phase, expand your test suite to 15 or 20 tests, make sure they all pass reliably, and write a good README that explains what you are testing and how to run it. That README is the first thing a hiring manager reads. Months 7 and 8, the portfolio shift. This is where most people plateau, and it is the phase that separates the people who make the transition from the people who keep saying they are working toward it. The transition does not happen in your head. It happens when you start doing the work publicly. By month 8, you should have 2 things: a GitHub profile with at least 2 test repositories that have real commits, good READMEs, and tests that actually run. And a LinkedIn profile that reflects the skills you now have, not the skills from your last job description. Change your title to QA engineer specializing in automation. Write a summary that mentions Playwright, JavaScript, API testing, and Git. Recruiters search for these terms. Second, stop waiting to feel ready. The most common mistake in this phase is waiting until the portfolio is perfect before applying. Apply at month 7. The interview process itself will show you exactly what gaps you still have. There is no faster feedback loop than a real job interview for the role you want. The portfolio is not finished, it is in progress. And a portfolio in progress with a story behind it is more compelling than a perfect project that was never shipped. Let's recap the 8-month roadmap. Months 1 through 3, JavaScript fundamentals, Git basics, first Playwright tests on a real app, push to GitHub. Months 4 through 6, learn the testing pyramid, read CI/CD pipelines, add API tests, expand to 15 or 20 test cases, write a strong README. Months 7 and 8, update your LinkedIn with your new skills, apply to roles while you are still building, treat rejections as interview feedback. The exact timeline varies. Some people go faster. Some go slower. But the sequence does not change. Foundation first, depth second, portfolio third, apply while building. Do not wait. Do not try to learn everything at once. Do not buy a certification hoping it will substitute for a real project. Build the thing. Put it on GitHub. Show your work. In the next video, we are covering CI/CD for QA engineers, what a pipeline actually does, how to wire up your test suite to run automatically on every commit, and what that looks like to a hiring team. Subscribe so you don't miss it. QA Career Lab. Because quality is not an accident. It is a practice.